Welcome back to another episode of FNL Fridays. My name is Teresa, and today I'm here with Lita Lewis. Lita is a health coach, the host of My Freedom Retreat, and the founder of Thick Athletics Apparel. And I am just so excited to have her here today. I've had the pleasure of meeting her in person a few times, as well as following along on Instagram the past couple of years. And I can say honestly that she's just one of the most down-to-earth, kind, inspiring people that I have had the pleasure of meeting, and I'm really excited to chat with her today and learn more about Lita. So thank you so much, Lita, for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We have a lot to talk about today. One of the first things that I would love to hear about is your Freedom Retreat that you just wrapped up last month. And I want to know how that went. That was your third one, right?
Yes. The My Freedom Retreat, this was our third annual. This year I hosted it in Costa Rica. So it was beautiful and green and lush and just everything that I personally love. Mm-hmm. I'm always lost for words when it comes to describing kind of like the magnitude of what these retreats are all about. Because yes, it is very much a group of people coming together, having this vacation and doing things that they otherwise wouldn't do if they were like on a vacation on their own or with a partner. But it really is a beautiful collection of people from all over that are very much strangers from day one, that are very like-minded, that are very intuitive and open to growing and being exposed to different ways of holistic healing, whether or not we're kind of like diving deep in some really personal conversations, discussing traumas. There's workouts that I lead, obviously myself, and some of them are very, outside of the gym, obviously. We're working out on the beach and doing some really fun stuff. And then there's meditation. So I have the most amazing time. It is the very best and my personal favorite part of what I do as far as like my career. And the people that come are, like I said, they start as strangers and even to myself, but by the time we're done, like I have these amazing connections as they do amongst themselves. And I really leave feeling as though I've made a bunch of new friends. So it really is awesome. I enjoy it.
I've been to retreats and workshops like that, and as an attendee and also as the leader of it, and I can say on both sides, they're just so wonderful. And just speaking from the professional side, I think you and I are similar in that we both really love educating and leading others. At least I know I do, and it definitely sounds like that's your thing, right? So yeah, I can totally understand how that would just be so amazing and so much fun for everybody involved. And I love that you take such a holistic approach to it. And that's just, for me, that's something I also am really moving more into. We have a little more similarities than you might know, just that I have prior experience in the bodybuilding industry. I know that you did a show years back, and I did not do a show, but I was prepping for a show, and a lot of my experience with that led me to where I am now because of the mental toll and the emotional toll that took on me. And we can get into that a little bit later, but just back to that point of, I really love the fact that you are so well-rounded in your approach. And for anybody that follows you, I think they would agree that comes through very clearly, that it's not just aesthetics, right? And it's not just, oh, here's how to work out. It's so much more than that.
Right.
And I also know that that's not where you really started with your career. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your background story, how you landed here.
Oh, I started. So I was actually raised in Sydney, Australia, which is why I have somewhat of a weird accent now. But day one basically started here in LA, which is where I now reside. I was born in Los Angeles. My parents, I think my mother got homesick, and a lot of her family resided in Australia, New Zealand, and in the South Pacific, the islands that we're from. And I think she just got very homesick after spending several years in Los Angeles with my father. So by age 2, my parents moved to Australia where I was raised. Age 23, I moved to New York City, and I the whole purpose and objective was to be centrally located in the world so I could travel in my 20s. That was really important to me. At a very young age, I knew that I needed to get outside of this comfort zone and experience life abroad. And so because I was dual citizenship, I figured, why not New York City so I could travel Europe, obviously travel the United States, the islands, and rock out and not have to worry about a visa, right?
Yeah.
I did just that at age 23. I moved to New York by myself, having never been to the city. I did not have a job lined up. I knew not a soul. All I had was 2 suitcases and a laptop. I actually had nowhere planned to stay, so I actually put myself in a hotel room for 21 days.
Wow.
I say 21 days is because I had enough cash just to put 21 days worth down and be like, I got 21 days to figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
Find a job, find an apartment, and hopefully make some friends along the way. And then God willing, sure enough, it happened. By day 19, I had signed a lease, gotten the keys. I had landed a job. And I sure enough made a few friends along the way. And that's where life really started. I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. To this day, I still do. New York, I now know in hindsight, as like a grown woman, I realize now, being so young and naive to a lot of things, because I was so open-minded and willing to learn, I think that I took in New York City like a challenge that I'm proud to say I kind of, rose to, like,
definitely is a challenge.
Right, chew me up and spit me out. Like I really found myself, so to speak. I worked the corporate world in online media and advertising, and my life was just crazy. I ended up working for this gentleman who is a fantastic businessman, very tenacious. Everyone loved him. He took a liking to me. I basically worked for him directly. So I worked directly for our CEO and founder. I very much was like hands-on with a lot of things, working out of his condo, dealing with his family. There's travel involved. I was that person. And after working for him for like 6 years in New York City, I think I just got burnt out. And what played a really big part in that is that I had a person at the time who was my best friend. His family was my family. His friends became my friends. What I was so married to in being with him was what he came with. And it was so familiar with me, and I felt very much at home. Yeah. So work got the best of me at some point. My relationship dissolved. It was a horrible breakup. I was completely shattered. Yeah. I found myself in this insane spiral to which I now know is depression. And my depression at the time was pretty severe. Like I would have thoughts of not wanting to leave my apartment, or as bad as it got is almost hurting myself. With that said, I would still like leave to go to work and put on this smile and face and be who I thought I was supposed to be, because I was always a very kind of lighthearted, friendly, optimistic person. So I, in other like realms, I was very much, my job with my friends, I was very much still trying to be that person, but I knew that wasn't the case. All that to say, work just hit me hard. The breakup was just devastating to me, and I was in this depression. I found myself saying after about 9 months, I had dropped almost 30 pounds. I barely recognized myself, that if I couldn't get it together on my own, I need to just go back home to Australia. I put in several years at this point, but it's time to go home. But sure enough, being that I am who I am, this idea of defeat is something that just never has sat well with me. I certainly didn't want to run home and tell my mother and my sisters, my dad, that like someone broke my heart. So like everything came to shit and I decided to come home. Right. So I was determined to figure it out. Right. How I figured it out was like literally looking myself in the mirror and saying, what the heck makes you happy? Outside of this relationship that was so much a part of who I thought I was, again, a mistake attaching myself and my happiness to someone. It was a lesson I learned. Like, what do I love and who am I outside of this relationship? And I remember thinking, the only thing that really makes me feel good is moving, just literally moving. I grew up as an athlete. I ran track and field, played football growing up. I just needed to move. And so sure enough, I throw myself in the gym, and then literally life changed. I basically became addicted to the gym. I transformed my body very quickly because I knew, having been an athlete, that if I'm going to train this for a ridiculous amount of hours, X amount of times a week, that I need to fuel my body right so I can just do the same insane workout the following day.
Right.
So I started eating right, working out insane. My body changed dramatically. And then someone came up to me and just said, hey, what show were you training for? And I said, what? I said, show? He said, oh, you're not competing? I said, competing? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I apologize. I thought you were one of those, bodybuilding chicks. And I was like, bodybuilding? I was like, oh, no. But sure enough, I run home, I open the laptop, and I'm Googling bodybuilding. And that's essentially what happened. Did that, competed several times over the course of 18 months, and was basically documenting my journey on social media.
Right. But I'm curious, having that experience on that end of the fitness spectrum, and then kind of where you're at now, which obviously you're not competing now, and I don't believe you have for a while. I'm curious what maybe your biggest lesson or takeaway was from being on different sides of the spectrum.
Listen, the biggest takeaway for me is really a learning curve. When I was competing at that time, it was exactly what I needed. I needed something to focus in on. My behavior was very extreme, very excessive. And at the time, I don't think I would have changed anything. However, now in a space where I went from the sport of bodybuilding, which is purely aesthetics, purely what you look like externally, building out certain muscles to look a certain way just because. So I went from this idea of what I thought I needed to train for as far as purpose and performance, functionality, into this idea of it just has to look good, and it has to look good based on what these 5 judges have to say about it. So already that's a change and a perspective, and that I now today in hindsight realize was a bit of a journey.
Yes.
Now, from there, I also recognize that the sport of bodybuilding is a very extreme sport. It's not for everyone. For those that are in it, my hat goes off. I don't throw shade on it by no means. At the time in my life when I was competing, it was exactly what I needed. I learned so much about myself, not just physically, more so mentally, and my resiliency, my capability of being able to push through what was not only physically exhausting, but just the most mentally challenging thing I've ever done. To this day, the hardest thing I've done in my life. When you can sort of surpass that and come up on the other side, you realize you've just gained the wealth of knowledge for your own self. And I think at that time, I took all that I see was firstly kind of a negative thing, because I completely messed my body up. My body yo-yoed, and I gained like 27 pounds back in the first 6 weeks, like after my first show. Like my idea of body positivity was kind of like completely warped, because I went from being like 10% body fat back to like 23% body fat, and like, is this beautiful? Am I strong? All these things that play with my head. I realized in that space that if I wanted to like sort of stay on social media as being a woman that is empowering women to make change, I'm not necessarily telling them to be bodybuilders, but the idea that hard work, consistency, and resiliency and all these things can equal a beautiful outcome, that I also had to look at myself again and be like, oh, for so long, I have been forming my physical self, my external self, to meet the standards of like what these 5 stranger judges were going to judge me on. And that if I'm going to stay in the space of women empowerment, I needed to start defining what beauty and what strength meant for me and not for them. And I decided to leave bodybuilding. I then focused on all the other things that makes change happen, because that's what I noticed a lot of women were looking for, not necessarily to become bodybuilders, but like, how do I figure out my life? How do I become a better mother? How do I become a better coworker? How do I get that promotion? So all these things come back to these like key elements. Again, hard work, consistency, resiliency, perseverance, that I had just happened to channel to bodybuilding. And now I decided I will take what I've learned from bodybuilding and then apply it to just literally life. Living, positively, taking on practices that help you with your inner health. Mm-hmm. To me, I find a much more healthier, more sustainable way to then, encourage that your physical self will eventually follow. So because I love myself, I work out.
Yeah.
Because I feel I am worthy, I give 100% effort to everything I commit to. So all these things, you just channel them in different ways. And this is where the space I'm in now. I'm not telling everybody they need to lift weights and be in the gym 7 days a week to be able to change and better their lives. But I am absolutely trying to tell people that with the key ingredients to success need to be applied in any aspect of your life in order for change to happen.
And it's so interesting, the point that you're bringing up. It applies to probably everyone, but especially women. And I think you and I can speak a little more to that as fitness professionals, right? Women that are also fitness professionals. But there is generally, I've found a lot with my clients is that there's this big imbalance between what's going on the outside and the inside. And just changing the outside does not mean that you're going to feel better on the inside. And in my experience, it was exactly the opposite. When I was my most lean, I was my most insecure. I was super stressed out and anxious. And over the past few years, as I have kind of been figuring this out for myself, where do I want to be in fitness and what is my role, but also what feels good to me, what makes me feel good in my body and within my body, and for me, that was a really, really challenging road to navigate, because for so long after I had prepped and got into bodybuilding, I had this very extreme idea of what was beautiful, what looked good, what was attractive, and then compound that with being a personal trainer, where I had people commenting about you're not, you don't really look like a personal trainer, or you should lose a little bit of weight. I had other trainers saying that to me, and I hope that's never happened to you, but it's really challenging to find that balanced place of yes, I love my body and I'm doing these things because I love it. And I also have aesthetic goals, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of times that comes down to really being honest with ourselves about what we're actually looking for. Are we actually looking for 10% body fat, or are we looking for some feeling of validation or worthiness, or, something that maybe we feel that that's going to give it to us?
Absolutely.
With the work that you're doing, I'm curious how you're kind of tying this all together.
So right now I consider myself a part-time trainer because I didn't necessarily leave the corporate world to kind of throw my entire time to something else. It was really important for me when I left corporate that I create time for myself and for the other things that I love. So I take on my clients' morning hours and then evening hours. So I have majority of the day to myself. I also then host these international retreats that we discussed, which I call the My Freedom Retreat. I am in 2020 considering doing more domestic retreats, so just in the United States, because there's a lot of people that cannot make those that are international. Sure. So making them a bit more accessible is something that I'm really fond of, figuring out. I do spend the spring and summer, hitting different cities, leading what I've always called the Body Blast Bootcamp. Mm-hmm. And it's a bootcamp that I lead that is really about functional movement. So I sort of take it back to my track and football days, where I really am encouraging women, specifically, men definitely do show up, to move like real athletes. So that's been really important and a lot of fun to travel and see people face to face. I do expos throughout the year. I'm asked to sit on panels, be keynote speakers when it comes to women empowerment, especially children. Mm-hmm. I've also coached, local high school track teams, and been also a mentorship kind of program. I do have online training programs, but I'm actually looking into compiling a lot of my workouts and then creating what I'm calling a method, so to speak. This will be something that I roll out in January of 2020. A lot of what we see online, especially on social media, is kind of like the fancy stuff, if you will, like stuff that's kind of made up to look unique and very dynamic to appease an online audience.
Yes.
Like any really good trainer that knows the body, knows the mechanics, knows that, it actually only takes simple movements to yield results.
Right.
We don't need to sit there and do backflips, do a burpee, jump over a hurdle, which is all cute and all well, and that's your thing. But when it comes to training, I've decided to take a more streamlined approach to it, which I'm calling it my own method, not yet labeled. But I'm excited about rolling that out, and that'll be somewhat of an app, so people can be a subscription-based training program that they can have access to. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be really good.
And I love that you're doing that, because you're so right about just all of the content that is out there, and I love watching it too. And
I mean, it's fun. It's entertaining.
It is. It's entertaining, but it's funny because, and I am a fitness professional, like I'm very confident in the gym, but I wouldn't try most of that stuff. Not because I don't think it would give me a good workout, but it's like, I'm not going to
you need to.
Yeah. Like I'm not going to try to balance on 4 balls and do plyo push-ups and then do a burpee. Like there's no reason, in my opinion, aside from it's fun, it's creative. Maybe it's it feels fun to do it, but from a functional standpoint, I don't really think that's necessary. So I'm glad to hear that you're putting out information that's easy to digest for anybody, but also just that this is the stuff that's really going to help you. And if you want to practice that stuff for fun, when you feel comfortable with it, go for it. But the fundamentals are the fundamentals.
Exactly. So I'm just trying to take it back. I don't know if it's take it back to the boring basics. Honestly, and anybody that's been an athlete will tell you, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Right. We just need to do the work. So there's going to be a strength component, and there's also going to be at-home workouts too that I do especially when I'm on the road or at home with my kids.
Right. That's just going to apply to so many people, because that's also real life. A lot of times you and I, people like us, fitness professionals, we're catering to people who are not personal trainers, that don't have the type of time we have, that don't live in the gym sometimes like we do. So I think it's great to cater to that and remember that, because I think, sometimes for us, we forget that most other people are not in the gym, 5 to 7 days a week, or don't have the time to do that.
I agree.
So, yeah, I love that you're doing that.
I'm really determined to at least kickstart it.
Yeah.
Be able to provide X amount of workouts that will be available January. Then it'll be new workouts every month. But it's going to be kind of back to basics, fundamental based, that are going to yield results.
So you've got your app launching very soon. And then you also have a channel that's coming up that you're hosting.
So yes, it's something that I'm also very excited about. It's been a process in the making. We've been working on this for several years.
Oh, wow.
With a really awesome producer who I love and love like a sister. She's amazing. But it's getting the right talent and doing things literally on our own time. But we're calling this Hello Fitness TV. Yes. And it's with me, Lita Lewis. So I basically get to play host to pretty much a talk show, but it's going to be really educational, exposing some of our favorite personalities from all different realms, not just fitness, talking about wellness, especially because that's one thing I find really hard to translate on social media, on my Instagram, is to talk about these things that are more internal, more encompassing to our spiritual, emotional, and mental health. So this show is going to really allow me to kind of be that person to kind of literally just share as a different type of message. So I'm really excited about that. We've filmed several episodes and they're in post-production right now. But when it's time to release, I'm going to do so with a bang because I want everybody to see this.
I am already subscribed and I'm super excited to see. I just love stuff like that. And you have the energy for it and the education, the know-how, all that, the experience for it. So I cannot wait to see what you are bringing to the table. Is there anything else exciting kind of on the horizon that you're working on that you want to share with everyone?
Outside of just work, I think what's really important, especially when it comes to these audiences, is womanhood, and sharing, what's personal outside of what's always career orientated and what we're throwing out there. So 2020 should be a really exciting year. My partner and I, we purchased a home last year.
Congrats.
We have full custody of his beautiful sons that I consider my own because I'm raising them.
Yeah.
We look to perhaps maybe start a family of our own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff to get prepared for.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
But it's important to, I think, share, only because I think a lot of the world see, especially women in entrepreneurship and pursuing XYZ, and that's all good and well. But sometimes we're like, hey, but we're still women. There's all the other aspects that we're about, and especially of a certain age that we're planning. And so I say that proudly so, because it'll be something that we have to go on a journey for, because my partner had a vasectomy. So we then have to do the reversal. And so I'm actually looking forward to kind of sharing that process.
Yeah.
For those that can relate to that, and women in fitness or otherwise that are, bosses and doing their thing, but also needing to find time and grace to pursue everything on the personal spectrum. Yeah. So there's that I haven't really spoken too much of that I get to share right here.
Well, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm like the first to know. Thank you.
Again, obviously it's not a done, like obviously I'm not pregnant, but what I'm saying is 2020, that'd be something that we're consciously going to be doing.
Very exciting. And I love that you just mentioned that idea. And honestly, I mean, to everyone who's listening to this, they're going to hear it, but just me hearing it right now as a woman entrepreneur, touching on that kind of balance between our careers and growing our businesses and sharing our message and what we're doing with the world, but also having the other side of us too. And that's something that I've been working through, because when you're trying to grow your own business and it's basically just you, it's tough, and you're at it like day in and day out. It's basically, for me, it feels like a part of me. My business feels like a part of me. And so I think it can be easy to kind of be consumed by that and get a little caught up in that and forget about the other sides of ourselves. And I'm speaking a little bit personally right now. And this is actually something I'm working through right now, is kind of, who am I and what are my values and what am I really trying to do with my life and bring to the world outside of just my business. I love, that you have that kind of distinction between the two, that it's not just all one thing, that there's multiple sides to all of us.
I try to live a well life, and I think trying to find balance between things that always equate to, say, putting food on the table, as well as finding time for the people that are sitting at that table is really important, right? So I never want to be that person that always looks like fully in charge, or the boss person, or the women in entrepreneurship. I'm that, but I'm also like a mom, and I spend my time doing homework and taking kids to basketball, football, baseball. And I think when you can talk about it and share it, then women know, like, oh, I don't have to be like all the time. There's other parts of my life that I also get to give time and grace to as well. And I think that's important.
It is. And it's just another thing that makes you so relatable. And I love that. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Think, so many people out there, even if they have that side, they don't necessarily show it. And I think it's really important to show that, because you want to help other people. And part of helping other people is showing them that you're human too. Yeah. That we all have struggles, and we all have those days where we're just like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, or I don't know what I'm doing, or hey, I need to make time for my family today. Like, business needs to wait. So I love that you're sharing that, because I think a lot of women are definitely going to appreciate that candidness and authenticity about that overall topic, really just part of life, right?
I would like to think so. It's important.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I want to make sure everybody knows how to get in touch with you, reach you. So the app that you are releasing,
yes,
where can we get more information about that as well, and your new talk show?
Yeah. It's a good question. Everything is on different platforms, so I try to make this as easy as possible. So basically, on social media, I can be found at Follow the Lita. So my name is spelled Lita. So it's Follow the Lita across all boards. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. The talk show is called Hello Fitness TV, and that's its own Instagram handle. Episodes will be dropped January of 2020, so it's going to be a very busy month. Awesome. I'll use my main handle on Instagram to promote and share what those dates are. My retreat is called the My Freedom Retreat, and that is also its handle on social media, also at .com. And then my apparel line is Thick Athletics Apparel. Also, it's Instagram. Also, it's .com. And again, all that information can always be found on Follow the Lita Instagram handle and my website, which is just Lita Lewis.
Okay.
It's a whole lot. I know it's a whole lot.
You got a lot, but I love that you make it easy and we can just go to your one Instagram and find everything there. And thank you for reminding us about your apparel line. I know that we did not get a chance to talk too much about that, but people need to definitely check it out. I am a huge fan of your Fuck a Thigh Gap shirts.
Yes. Why not?
It's so funny because I see it and I'm like, yes. I'm like, I need that shit. Like, I need to be like repping this sweatshirt right now because I just love that. And again, no shade to anybody who has a thigh gap.
No shade, but sometimes you're going to be proud of what you don't have.
Mm-hmm. Those thick thighs.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. So thank you. I am so excited to see everything you've got going on next month and next year, really, because it sounds like clearly you've got a lot lined up. So thank you again. And I definitely will be talking to you soon.
Sounds good. I'm totally humbled and appreciate that you'd want to reach out and chat with me, Teresa. So thank you so much for your time too and having me on your show.
Oh, my pleasure.